it's interesting to look back at some of the commentary over the last year or so on foreign policy and the BJP and on foreign policy, and Narendra Modi in particular, because he's been written off as something of a novice on foreign policy, both by experts in Delhi, people sort of inside the beltway, so to speak, and also to many commentators abroad, including in the United States. He's been described as having little foreign policy experience, as unlikely to change the contours of Indian foreign policy, as someone who treats foreign policy as an afterthought, or as a reflexive hardliner. But it could be that all of these assessments are wrong. Modi himself was asked about what people have said about his foreign policy, and he dismissed it as using the word anuman, or conjecture, or supposition. He's in fact given 3 speeches on foreign and security policy since becoming the prime ministerial candidate in September of last year. He's discussed it in a number of interviews, which are in fact in some ways more revealing because they're unscripted. And he's had a certain amount of international economic experience as the Chief Minister of Gujarat. I should say that a lot of people who try and project what a Modi foreign policy will look like may not actually have much in the way of particular insight as to what that might be. In fact, we don't even know right now, at present, who the next who will occupy the key posts in the foreign policy establishment. We should know in the next few days to weeks. But that said, I think the most revealing insights we can get are by actually going back to some of the speeches he's made, and because I think they do reflect in some ways his worldview. The first thing you notice, actually, is that he emphasizes that foreign policy begins at home. He has called for a strong patriotic government at the center. He has drawn attention to the problems of stagnancy. And he has an interesting line in one speech, which he gave in English, incidentally, where he said, "I believe a strong economy is the driver of an effective foreign policy. We have to put our own house in order so that the world is attracted to us." He added in that same speech at a different part, he said, "The current dysfunction in Delhi has prevented even much-needed military modernization and the upgradation of India's defense infrastructure." So, I mean, this is a pretty clear statement of intent. The foreign policy begins at home. Now, this could be translated in some ways into a sort of splendid isolation. India needs to get its own house in order, focus inwards, and again, the rest of the world can continue doing what it's doing. But again, we don't really see that reflected in any of his statements. In fact, he acknowledges, in some ways, the realities of globalization. He said in response to one question, he said, "We're not living in the 18th or 19th centuries, but in the 21st century." Elsewhere, he said in a speech, "Now foreign policies are shaped by commercial interests." He said India can offer a lot to the world, and he remarked in particular on India's ability to create institutions and intellectual property, which I thought was an interesting choice of interesting phrase to use.